Welcome to the show, everybody. Micah with CoronavirusDiaries. Today, I'm fortunate to be able to speak with Frank Cupery, a housing inspector, a entrepreneur, and a creative. So, Frankie and myself had met many, many years ago. I was just getting into the video industry, or being a videographer, a creative in that sense, and he was working on producing, promoting, wearing many, many hats in terms of getting a music festival up and operational, his first of many. But without me going into too much detail, Frank, how about you share with the viewers, the listeners, a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Where are you from?
My name is Frank. I'm from Minnesota. I'm a housing inspector, an entrepreneur, and a creative, just as Mike had told you. When we had first met, what he didn't mention is I had also owned a construction company at that point
That's right.
well. So I was wearing many hats, one during the day and several at night. And I enjoy creating things and building things, virtually and as well as in the physical. So I'm construction, very knowledgeable with construction. So
And that's been your life for how long?
I started in the construction industry when I was about 15, but I had some family members that were in building, and hardware retail, so hardware stores. So I started getting into it at an early age, like 11, 10, somewhere around there.
And then fast forward till today, you're working as a housing inspector within Minnesota. And I know we talked a little bit before we started. We can't go too far into details, but how about for the listeners? What exactly is it that you do? And I mean, it's still considered essential, but you're still going out and about. You're doing inspections on housing, whether commercial, residential, other.
Yes. So for the municipality I work for, they are still doing building inspections. The interior inspections they're trying to do more by photo, and or keep safe distance. Have everybody clear the house, wearing proper personal protection, PPE equipment.
You walking around in a big yellow suit and a hood on, or what?
Yeah, hazmat. No.
Yeah.
So for my position, I do code enforcement and housing enforcement. So I inspect individual single family rental homes. I also do multifamily rental dwellings, and then I also do complaint-based code enforcements. So I'm still doing all the exterior inspections. At the moment, interior inspections have been suspended for over a month now, and I think we're hoping to get things going again in another month or so.
Sure, just depending on what the numbers are showing.
Right, it'll be interesting to see. So I'm still, they are having us limit the office contacts, so we are working remotely, and I'm still conducting field inspections that are exterior in nature.
Sure. So not a whole lot has changed for you. You guys are taking a little more precautions in as far as doing the inspections, and but otherwise you're still on a payroll and you're still out there getting it.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to still be able to be working. Local government's considered an essential service, so everybody at our offices has had to adapt. But, and things have definitely changed a lot, but we are all still performing duties as needed. And, whether it be working in the city office, the city hall office, or working from home, we're still out there getting it done and making sure that, people in our jurisdiction are safe, and, keeping the regulatory things going.
So, right on. Speaking of adapting, how is it out there on the outer edges of the stratosphere?
Yeah, you like that?
That's outstanding.
I got the green screen in the back. Like Mike. He said creative. I have some creative equipment, and so I like to have fun with it. So
yeah, recently you had just gotten a piece of hardware that allows you to
Yeah.
do so. And you've been running kind of like a podcast Q&A live stream session. Was
During
it
quarantine. Yeah.
Tequila Talks
So
with?
I have this, well, it started out, I call it Tequila Talks. And that was kind of fun. And I think I'll do another one of those soon, but I've kind of rebranded it as the Frank Factor. Um, let's see here. I usually pick like some sort of category topic and then ask people to call in, and then I have a couple of callers that I have call in, and we discuss things. And it's good to connect with people. I feel like some of the people that maybe I know more personally have appreciated it, and people I don't know that personally that are on my Facebook channel, they seem to have a good time with it too. So it's good.
Yeah,
It's fun.
the adapting to this social distancing has presented a number of unique opportunities. And seeing, because I'd followed along with a couple of them that you've put up before with the live call-ins and that, and that's a
Hmm.
pretty unique thing to do for just somebody that's sharing with friends and family. And are you getting much engagement or interaction from people outside of your network that maybe aren't necessarily in
Yeah,
your?
I mean, I've had some friends share it now, so I get some people that I don't even know that are kind of checking it out. And I think people appreciate that. I'm generally trying to spread a message of positivity, but also get serious but have fun with it. So
Sure.
it's kind of all over the board there. But it's I feel, so far I feel like I've tried to incrementally make it a better product. So I think it's a passion project. It's for fun now, but I think it's starting to move in the right direction.
Let's go down this route. This is great. So earlier today, I was talking with one of my team members about incremental improvements, and it seems like a lot of people will get in their own way and prevent themselves from publishing or producing content because it's not up to a certain standard that they have, whether it's in their head or whether they're viewing other people's perceptions of their product. You just said you're trying to make incremental changes and just go with it. How did you ever get yourself to that point where you're like, you know what, I know this isn't going to be the best thing, or whatever the project is you're working on, because you've worked on quite a few things. You've done a lot of cool stuff in the years that I've known you, from creating things from scratch. Just these concepts, you come up with it, you'll push something through, a lot of learning opportunities. And I say that with the biggest heart, but it's, with production in general, it's always working against you. So how did you ever find your way to becoming okay with producing content, publishing it, sharing it with the world, and then just being like, it is what it is, I'm going to try to improve it on the next round?
Well, I've always had a raw quality to myself. I've never been afraid to tell people how I felt usually, as long as it wasn't like just completely like belittling somebody.
Sure.
But I guess for lack of a better way to state it, I don't always give a shit. So
Sure.
so it's like I guess it's putting aside your fear and understanding that that there's evolution and process and everything. And just because you might not do things perfect the first time, it still leaves opportunity for growth at the end. And if you just look at it like that, well, the last time I did it is an opportunity for me to grow into the next time. So what can I do better? And then the cool thing about the platform I have going is it's a live broadcast, and I have all sorts of people commenting on the stream and doing all that. So it kind of gives me an interactive like guideline of what people are looking for. So I can kind of go through and do my own marketing research afterwards. And, like life has just kind of taught me how to do this. If I was afraid to step out my door and do the things I need to do every day, then, I'm not going to get anywhere. But if allow myself to calculatively, yeah,
If that's not a word, it is now.
yeah, I just coined it. I allowed myself to consciously make those mistakes, so it's within certain parameters. So, and the bottom line is I just want to have fun with it.
Hey, there it
So
is.
I'm not attached to it as much, you know.
Yeah, are you go ahead.
I just not being attached and having fun, and you know, allowing yourself to have the failures and then being able to learn from those failures. I mean, that's where the true growth comes from. So
Sure.
it's just, I guess I've noticed that as a pattern, and at least in my life, and my reality is that when I fail, you know, it's a part of a bigger picture. It's not a part of just today and that failure. It's a
Right.
part of where I'm going to be in the next step. So
You wouldn't be where you are now had you not made the failures that you have
oh
in the
man,
past.
so many mistakes. Like I can't count all the mistakes I made,
Sure.
but they've all taught me something. And the ones that didn't, they came back again and they slapped me even harder. And then hopefully I learned at that point.
Yeah, that's very sound advice. Are you familiar with Pareto's law? It's 80-20. It's so
80%
there's
of the people doing 20% of
well,
the
it's
work, and 20% of people doing 80% of the work. Is that?
you know I you know what that I'm sure somebody could look into that. That's not what Pareto's law is,
Okay.
but
All right.
it's essentially since everybody is so fond of these exponential curves these days. Fun fact before I go into that too much longer is somebody shared a chart with an exponential curve going up, and it was showing the months. It said January, February, March, April, May. And the exponential curve goes up, and then on the left side of the chart, it was measuring time, and the chart was labeled the amount of time I've spent looking at an exponential chart over the past few months. It's, right? So, but Pareto's law is talking about, so if you're trying to get to like 100% status completion, 80% of the work can be done relatively easily, whereas the next 20% will take a majority of the time. There was a train of thought that we used, or I used rather, when I was in the service, and it was like a 70-30. And at one point in time, somebody had said that, you know, coming up with a 70% solution now as opposed to a 100% solution later when we're all dead, you know, it's the ideal thing to do. So make your best effort at doing the best that you can under the circumstances, and understand it's not going to be the best one, but it's the best that you can do under the circumstances, and move forward, because that last little bit, that 20 or 30%, it might be too late to implement it by the time you come up with it. And I think just based on sheer effort, you know, and we use it in corporate as well for doing, or I used it, implemented it with projects. So completing a project, you can always get it to that 70 to 80% area, but that last 20%, there's going to be exponentially more investment of time, resources, you know, finances in order to achieve that. So yeah, long tangent, long side conversation, but
so it's kind of pointing to the fact that nothing's ever really done until it's completely dead.
Yeah, it's
You know?
really, it's just, you know, especially nowadays with the amount of content that is being produced, just, you know, information age, it is what it is. It's a good idea just to make those steps forward, fail fast, fail often, and just make stuff happen. So do you have any?
Appreciate the process.
Yeah, it is. It's all about that process. So with the Frank factor, you got anything coming up here in the? Anything planned?
Last week I worked on some marketing stuff. I got from one designer. There's another designer that I usually work with that was kind of busy. He reached out to me over the weekend, and so I'm going to get some more stuff going with that. And then I'm just kind of reviewing what I've done and kind of seeing what worked, what doesn't, and kind of just trying to refine. So I think I'm going to do a couple more broadcasts this week, probably like Tuesday and Thursday. I usually go in the evening around 9 p.m. And then, you know, just always seeing what worked, what doesn't. One thing I noticed last time I was broadcasting is I do a lot of just shaking around and moving in my chair.
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
You know, crazy, you know, so that's one thing I'm trying to work on more. And, you know, so I'll be working on developing that. And just the way I talk to people, one thing this has really taught me is developing my listening skills. And how important that is, especially when you're trying to do in these type of medias where, you need to be listening most of the time, not necessarily talking. Where a guy like me, I might have a problem doing that. I might need to slow things down.
I think it's normal for most people though, is that silence. A lot of people can feel uneasy, and it's like nobody's talking. Somebody needs to be talking, and especially if you're hosting, you feel this obligation to help the conversation progress. So with time, in time, all things become easier.
Yeah, and just being open to listening to people. Realizing I'm not perfect.
Yeah. So we're on Zoom right now. Mm-hmm. We had talked previously, you had said you were looking at OBS. Are you using OBS for that live?
Yeah. I've been using OBS, open source broadcasting, I think is what that stands for. OBS Studios.
Open broadcast software. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So I'm using OBS Studio. I've been using it for a couple of years now. They've really done a nice job developing that product over time and making it compatible with different hardwares and stuff. And now, it's a pretty robust, for free software, it's pretty robust broadcasting software, in my opinion.
What's the most difficult aspect of learning that piece of software? For you, what was it? Uh-oh, we got some lag. You there, Frankie?
Yeah.
There we go.
Just learning what the, like how the system worked.
Okay. Just the functionality of the software itself to get it operational so that you can hit record and go with it.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and like the system, like setting up different scenes and the use of graphics to enhance those scenes, and the use of technologies such as green screen.
Yeah.
Use of technologies such as hardware, and how they, like, all these different systems work together. That's half the battle. 80% of that work, setting that up, and then you can just broadcast and have fun with it, So there's a lot of research and development that I had to do to get myself to that point. But, now I've been using it for a couple of years, and you can do some pretty neat stuff with the program. So.
Cool. Well, for all the viewers and listeners, in the About section below, you'll be able to find how to connect with Frank on his live stream call-in if you're interested. Frank, did you have anything to share with viewers, listeners before we jump off?
I just want you to know that you should never be afraid to fail. I've failed a number of times. I've lost money. I've lost friends. I've lost enemies, which is actually the best thing I've ever done. I try not to have too many, but what I'm saying is just don't be afraid to fail. And, just use it as a learning experience to propel yourself exponentially.
Which we're all very familiar with these days.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Great advice, Frank. Thank you for jumping on the show. Looking forward to having you come back here in about a week, 2 weeks or so, whenever you got free time. For the viewers and listeners, go ahead.
Next time I want to talk to you about, I didn't say much about it, yoga.
Yes.
That's the other part of my recipe that's really helped propel me forward and just
change the world.
Yeah, it's a transformational practice.
And you've been practicing now for well over a year, right? Over
2 years now.
Over 2 years. All right.
2.5 years now.
And you're pretty serious with it too. I know at one point you were saying hour to 2 hours you would just go into a session.
Yep. I do 2 hour sessions. I've done days where I've done practice for 5 or more hours, in increments.
Wow.
But it's amazing. So next time we'll talk about that a little more.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll touch base with the yogi Frank Cupery and see where he's at then.
Yeah, I might be somewhere else. Maybe the moon.
The volcano, from the center of the volcano.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
That's all.
Maybe I'll have to change this up. I wanted to keep it pretty simple, but now that I'm seeing you're out in outer space,
You should
We'll
make a graphic, and
yeah,
so
the incremental improvements.
yeah.
Noted. All right.
Yes.
We'll see
All
how
right.
that goes. For the viewers, listeners, thanks for joining us. It's been another episode of the Coronavirus Diaries. Micah and Frank Cupery.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's been a blast, brother. Until next time, you guys stay tuned. We got more coming at you.
Later.